Hi and welcome to this week's Life Lessons video. It's great to be back with you all. This week we're talking all about fear of abandonment and abandonment issues. Now this is something that affects so many of our therapy clients. So we're going to be sharing with you the telltale signs that abandonment issues carried from your childhood are at play in the dynamics of your adult life and adult relationships. And most importantly, we'll explain how you can finally understand and resolve these issues once and for all. Now, for many of our clients, this involves inner child work and inner child healing. So we'll also explain the steps that you can take as part of this process. Welcome to our Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons series. In each episode, we answer your questions, reveal the powerful life lesson, and offer you lots of practical tips and advice to help you live in balance, harmony, and flow. Okay, David, so the question we've had in on this topic is, I'm scared of being rejected and abandoned in my relationships and friendships. My worst fear is being alone, helpless, and vulnerable, not able to cope. This makes me needy, hypersensitive, and insecure in all of my relationships. I'm always waiting and expecting for things to fall apart, and so my relationships are always strained and unhealthy. How do I work with and reparent my inner child on this issue?
It's a great question, you know. I love listening to these questions because for me, as I listen to the question, I could almost stop you on each word. And perhaps that's something you could consider doing for yourself at home, you know, writing down your question and then doing the devil's advocate on your question. What do I mean by this? What do I mean by this? What do I mean by this? So, first of all, she said, I'm scared.
Yeah.
So, it's a red light feeling, isn't it? And who creates the red light feeling? And I can tell you, please listen to this bit because this is so important. And this is where many of my clients, even after they've worked with me and they intellectually, let's say, the mature them accept that they create the red light feelings, whatever they want to call them, scared, fearful, anxiety, whatever word you want to put on it. You know, I don't like those words because all those words do is hyping up the feeling and you get caught in the carousel. So intellectually, the mature them can't argue against that they create their emotional feelings. But my question, does that part of your mind that I call the inner child, does that part of your mind accept that you create the emotional feelings? And by that, I mean 100%, not 99.9%, or I heard yesterday from a client, I'm nearly there, David, I'm about 90%. No, I'm sorry, we've got to work on that because you have to absolutely 100% accept that every emotional feeling that you experience in your body, you are creating it. Can I tell you, this is the number one teaching of Wu Wei wisdom. Really study, meditate on that. And there should be no little bit of, I'm not sure, it could be what somebody else says, or it might float in the atmosphere. It's got to be 100%. If you take anything away from this video, work on that little saying.
And I guess, David, people will say, you know, yes, it's an emotional feeling. Yes, it's driving and strongly affecting my life and my relationships. My inner child is fearful.
Yes, creates fear.
Now, I guess the first step is
can I just say that, because that's the point. And this is why wording is so important. My inner child is fearful.
Yeah.
The correct wording, the correct sentence is, my inner child creates fear. It's
creating fear. Red light feelings of fear about issues to do with relationships and relationship dynamics. Okay, so I want to understand, because I know you've worked with so many people on this issue. Daily. What are the typical things that happen in people's childhoods that they then carry with them into adulthood in the form of that part of their mind that we call the inner child, that then replays the scenarios which then create the red light feeling. So what are the typical scenarios that in your experience as a therapist of 40 years is happening in a client's childhood?
Okay, so it's going to be a good question to answer, because it could be anything. Because what I understand is, as a child, we create an image, an illusion, a dream, magic kingdom, a Disney world, a utopian about how things should be. And so when things aren't the way that we believe that they should be,
or expect them to
be, that's what begins this. So here's typical, to answer your question. It can be a dominating mother or father, or parents, or both, or one. It can be an overprotective parents that tell you can't do anything and they have to do everything for you. It could be a parent that gives you very high standards and you're trying hard to please them and you never quite please them, and you want their approval. It could be an abusive family, a parent that's abusive verbally, physically, emotionally, or sexually, and you believe that it's your fault. There's something wrong with you. And this is the main thing that I want to get to your inner child. There's nothing wrong with you. You are amazing. You are an awesome little boy or girl. You do need a little bit of help in your emotional education, which we're happy to share with you, but there's nothing wrong with you. This was maybe a dysfunctional childhood experience. Yeah. And I understand and accept that may be difficult, but we have to learn the life lessons that dysfunctional childhood has presented for you on your journey.
So, David, I think for me, I'm quite surprised the examples you gave there, because they seem a little bit abstract. I guess I would most readily think that abandonment issues might be in adulthood, might be attached to, say, if as a child, someone who like a parent, someone we loved, someone we looked up to, someone who was our carer, left us, either through a divorce or left the family home without explanation. They're the kind of more, that would be a more explicit.
But that would be more straightforward and easy to pin down. And of course, that's why I started off saying, something happened that you didn't expect or want. Yeah. So it could be a divorce, it could be moving school, it could be a death in the family. It could be anything like that. It could be that your family splits up, and like me, and I was farmed around the external family until I ended up with my grandparents. It's anything that child that happens that they don't believe. And here's the word, how often do you hear me saying this? It's not fair. It's unjust. It shouldn't happen to me. And those incidences, the ones that you said, the ones that I've said, and I'm sure the ones you're screaming and saying, oh, you've forgotten this one, David. And it's when something doesn't go the way that you believe or want it to go, or you think it should go. Children have this very, I don't know what it is, this expectation of the way. And because they see CJ, they look at their friends, they look at other people and they go, well, they've got a mummy and daddy, or their daddy's nice, or their mummy's nice, or their mummy's there when they come home from school. Children are very good at comparing and then saying, well, why isn't that happening to me? That's not fair. So we can continue listing all of the individual things.
I think the word that's coming into my mind from what you're saying, David, it's almost like if a child experiences a lack of stability, in whatever way that manifests in their childhood experiences, or if they experience a situation or situations which makes them doubt their own ability to cope, that then leads to...
you've said something very important.
The abandonment
You've said
issues.
two important things there. Stability.
Yeah.
So a child is looking for stability. And I tell you, the number one thing that I get is not about divorce or death. It's about that their parents were not emotionally available to them. And so that created this instability that you mentioned. Because a child, quite rightly, this is nothing wrong with this, wants that stability. And if they're not getting that stability, then they're looking externally. Again, please get this right. As a child, this is absolutely appropriate. A child looks externally to their parents, guardians, for that stability, that knowing what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, knowing that they have boundaries, they can push back on the boundaries, the normal process of growing up and maturing. So that stability that you mentioned is very important. And when that's not there, it's almost like they're on unstable ground and they're looking externally for validation and it's not coming.
And certainty and surety.
Absolutely.
And no problem. So they might be from a childhood where there is an unstable family dynamic, as you say, parents that are emotionally unavailable, or parents that are emotionally
Physically
overly dominating, or parents that are unstable themselves emotionally.
Absolutely.
And so that unstable experience, coupled with the expectations that things should be the way I want them to be, coupled with the desire that I need to make things right, but I don't believe I can do this myself.
And thinking as a child, you can't do it yourself. You can't manage in the outside world. You need that validation, support, assurity, certainty. And if it's not coming, then that puts that first seed in your mind that we try and get to, that I call the vow. And this vow is very important. This vow is only you will know it. You've said this to yourself. And it's a self-questioning statement. And I say as a kind of as a generic thing, it must be me. I'm using that as a generic phrase. It must be me. That's what when I hear my clients' vows, that's what the vow normally sounds like. It must be me. There's something wrong with me. Or, of course, my parents would love me, wouldn't they? If something wrong with me. Or what I heard yesterday, my mother wouldn't have died with cancer. If my mother really loved me, she wouldn't have died with cancer. And this is so understandable from a child's perception. See, a child sees it just in their way. And when we move on in a moment to do the inner child, you've got to understand that when we do this work, we are not dealing with a monster. We are not dealing with a demon or a devil. We're dealing with a little child that's absolutely stuck. Yes, he or she is stubborn. Yes, he or she has only got one way of looking at things, but they're no devil. And that's when you get down to your child, you have to be compassionate and caring and loving, and because you are the educator to your child.
And I think, again, the word that's come up from what you've said there, this vow, this saying, everything that's going wrong here, everything that's happening in my childhood here with people leaving me, people arguing, people being emotionally unavailable or emotionally unstable, or, you know, questioning my abilities.
Wanting me to be perfect.
Want to be perfect. This is all my fault. It's blame. It's you blame yourself, and therefore, and you want to make things right. And this is where your inner child believes that I need something. I need to make things right. I need someone around me to rescue me. I need someone to look after me. I'm not going to be able to cope by myself. Things are going to fall apart. Things have fallen apart and they'll fall apart again. So how does this play out in the adult dynamics of relationships? This, what we carry from childhood.
So this goes down, and normally in my experience, can you see how wide-ranging this subject is? And I'm sure as you watch this, you're saying, oh, well, mine was slightly different. And I'm sure yours is slightly different. So remember, we're just trying to get into the area so you can learn this. So this normally comes out in the 3 lies. I'm not good enough, I can't cope, I'm unlovable, or I'm unworthy. Normally, I can't cope. And a bit of I'm unlovable or unworthy. So it's normally those 2. For some of my clients, it's all 3. But it's normally I can't cope. So they have this belief, I can't cope, and I need external validation, support, guidance. Just yesterday from one of my international clients, she said, I just need somebody to have my back. I said, what does that mean? She said, well, if things go, I won't say what she actually says, if things go upside down, you can imagine what she said, I want somebody that I can rely on, that's certain, that they're for me, that can step in and sort it all out for me. And I said, a little bit like a fairy godmother. She said, exactly, that's what I want. Somebody floating around, somebody got my back, like a rear view gunner, I said, yes, looking at back, picking up if I get something wrong or if I make a mistake, they can step in, sort everything out, put it in a box, put a pink ribbon on it and give it back to me. Now, I've over-exaggerated, but think about that. That's the process that you're looking for. You're looking for that certainty that you never will make a mistake, that everything will go. You will be able to deal with everything absolutely correctly and efficiently and authentically, and you never get nothing wrong, and you want somebody just to be there to support you in case something does go wrong.
I mean, that to me sounds like very, very heavy expectations.
Very heavy expectations.
You're setting for your partner or your close friends or your close family in terms of wanting them to step in and save you, wanting them to be perfect without any fault, because then you know you can trust them. And so in relationships, does this make an individual who has abandonment issues from childhood, does this make them very needy, very demanding, very clingy, very jealous, very critical and kind of trying to fault find in the partner?
Yes. It makes them all of that. Because I said to this lady, so what kind of a life has this lifesaver got for himself? Because you want him to just hover around, not all the time, she said, I don't want him all the time, only when I get in a sticky situation. So he's got to hover around, devote his life to you, and then look and then be ready to swoop in and sort it out when you get stuck. And as Alex just said, that is not a relationship. It's like a carer. And this is what I sometimes say with my clients. You're not looking for a partner, you're looking for an emotional carer.
Well, I think, David, the word for that is codependency, and we've done a long video on codependency, and I'll put a link to that for you. But we're attracted to certain individuals. We're attracted into relationships where we know this person's more likely to rescue us, to care for us. They're unbalanced relationships, and there's a manipulation going on.
Because,
on both sides, because equally the partner might be looking for someone that they can rescue to validate themselves.
Exactly.
But ironically, I mean, in we talk a lot about the swinging of the energy. So the person who has abandonment issues is on the one hand very needy, always seeking validation, always trying to be pleasing, people pleaser, because they want the validation to make sure they're all right, to make sure the person's going to stay with them, to make sure they're loved, that, you know, they're not going to be left by themselves. So on the one hand, they do that, but equally on the other hand, they can be critical, judgmental, angry,
jealous,
emotionally unavailable themselves, because they don't want this, scared of, if someone gets too close to me, they're going to leave me. So it's, and you can see how the partner, the friend of this individual, would be really confused about all these kind of conflicting, wide-ranging things coming at them from the person who is suffering with abandonment issues.
Alex, it's a wonderful question, because you see how paradoxical these emotional. That's why I love this work so much. I love sharing this with you, is to try and clarify this confusing, paradoxical thing that our mind swings from one to the other. And that's why I'm always saying to you, go back to the basics. Remember, you create your emotions. Remember, if you've had that dysfunctional, difficult childhood, if you're had a death when you were young, your family split up, or anything that we've said, or anything like it, that's my evidence, that's my route of why I think you're awesome, because you came through that. You did come through that. I don't like the word survived, because you actually thrived. You came through that situation. And what that part of your mind is doing is saying, I never want that to happen to me again. But what it's saying more important, I never want to feel those feelings again. They haven't accepted that they create the feelings. And that's why that teaching sounds so simple. But I can tell you, when you believe that 100%, no doubt, nothing, you absolutely believe that every emotion that you experience, you create. Your life changes. This is life-changing stuff. Because I'm not saying that events or difficult situations won't come your way, because they will. But when you are authentic, balanced, following your Shen compass, your spiritual compass, you can find your way through those much more authentically. In your flow. We don't talk much in these videos, but one of the nice translations of Wu Wei is being in your flow, being in a flow state. And if you ever want to see what that means, we were watching the other night this classical pianist, and we're not particularly into classical music, but this classical pianist was playing away and somebody was turning the music for them. And after about 2 or 3 minutes, the pianist never looked at the music. They were absolutely in their flow. How they remembered all those notes and the sequences and the positions and the rhythms, I have no idea. I would love to ask them, do they know how they did it? And this is what we mean by Wu Wei. This is what we mean by being in your flow. This is what we mean by being authentic. This is what we mean by being awesome. You have this. No one can give it to you and no one can take it away. The only thing that you do is to block your access to that Shen nature.
So if having abandonment issues and all the manipulations, the neediness, the dysfunctional relationship dynamics that come with this, if that is not Wu Wei, if that is being out of balance,
that's the opposite, isn't it? Really,
what does it look like to be in Wu Wei with your relationship dynamics? Because David, I know a lot of people say, but human beings are sociable creatures. Surely we need to be in relationship. We need people around us. We're naturally sociable. Are you saying that, well, once you're in Wu Wei, you don't need to be in a relationship. You don't need friendships.
I would again listen to the wording, and I would say, could you please define what you mean by need?
Okay, so that's the key.
That's the key. What does that mean to you? Does that mean, this is one of my clients, I love to share with you what my client says. This is what she said about 2 weeks ago. David, it's like I'm a jigsaw. And there's a piece of me missing, and I'm looking for another jigsaw to make me whole. I need that to make me whole. You don't. You're already whole. And if you believe you need this to make you whole, then that's the wrong definition of need. Of course, we are sociable creatures. That's why you're watching these videos. That's why we're sharing this with you. That's why we're sharing our wisdom, our knowledge. That's why I'm sharing 45 years of practice with you, because we've got a beautiful community where we're all in this together. People ask questions. That is who we are as a human being and a race of people. It's part of our DNA. It's part of what we want. But we should not control people. People should be with us because they choose to be with us. So Alex and I are married, for those of you who don't know. Some of you don't know. I love Alex. I choose to be in a relationship. Hopefully Alex loves me, and she says she does, and she chooses to be in a relationship with me. If she changed her mind, of course I'd be upset. But you know what? I love Alex, and I want her to be happy. And if she's not happy with me, then I would want her to move away and be happy with whoever she is, because that's how much I love her. And that's what I mean. I don't need Alex. Alex doesn't need me. We choose to be together. And that's a much healthier relationship.
And so I think the message I'm getting here, it's about having what is the authentic intention behind the choices you're making in terms of who you're in a relationship with, or who you're in a friendship with, or who you want to spend time with. Is your intention because you're worried that you're not going to be able to cope, that things are going to fall apart, that you're not good enough if you haven't got a crowd of friends with you, or that if you're not married with kids, expectation, all the CCJ, comparing, criticizing, being judgmental about yourself and other people, striving for perfection. Is your intention in terms of why you're in the relationship with people you're in, is that the driving force, or is it something more authentic?
Exactly. So if you're being in, as you said, because you're needy, because you want them, because you want to be part, here's another word I've been hearing just lately, part of the tribe. I don't even know what that means. I want to be part of a tribe because I need it, I want it. It's like you're addicted. It's like a drug addict. You want to be with people who want to be with you. In this, I want you to watch this video because you want to watch this video. I'm happy when you disagree, when you put comments, when you agree. That's because you want to be in the video, and then we have a healthy relationship.
And so, David, does this come back to a lot to do with self-love as well?
Absolutely,
because
everything to do with self-love.
It sounds to me that a lot of this is about seeking validation and security from other people, rather than getting self-assurance, validation and security from yourself.
And that's why the inner child work is so important, because when you are a child, of course, you are not capable of doing that for yourself. And this is why this needs to be updated.
Yeah.
If you're still working, as I often say, and a couple of people have written in and say, who's emotionally driving your life? Is it you as a mature person, or is it a 6, 7, 8-year-old child emotionally driving your life? It's almost like instead of being on Windows 10, you're still on Windows 95, you're still running the old system, and you haven't updated it. And that's why we call it emotional education.
And moreover, David, you say that surely as children, we're not expected to do that. Quite rightly, we look externally for that support, that love, that guidance. But equally, we're not taught as children or teenagers or young adults how to do the self-love thing for ourselves. So, of course, we have the expectation to be guided, to be looked after, etc. when we're children. But so many of us are not taught to stand on our own 2 feet, to be self-assured, to how to self-refer.
And so you have to teach this to yourself.
Yeah.
We call it emotional self-responsibility. Self-responsibility is one of the 3 clauses on the spiritual contract, the Shen contract that we've talked about. So emotional self-responsibility is so important in your spiritual and your self-development, to be emotionally self-assured about yourself, to take that reference from yourself. And as Alex says, if you're still working on the system of a child looking externally, this is where it goes wrong. This is what then creates the red lights. Because remember, the red lights are telling you that you're not aligned with reality. That's why I prefer them to call them red lights. They are helpful. Don't think that red lights are against you. They're giving you the sign that one or more of your beliefs are not correct, and we have to go down and tweak or readjust the belief. And that's what it normally is. Excuse me. It's not normally a wholesale change. When we've done the golden thread and you've gone down to the inner child, the inner child normally just needs a little tweak. It's a misunderstanding. And from that misunderstanding, it develops into something bigger.
I think as well, David, you said the red light feelings, so the painful or uncomfortable feelings that you're experiencing around these issues. Yes, they're absolutely signposts that you're not aligned with reality. You've got false expectations of yourself, the world, your partners, your friends. But equally, the spiritual signpost telling you that you're not aligned with your authentic self. You're not living your highest path. You're not living to your true potential. So
that's why when I say to clients, those red lights you call fear, anxiety, depression are great. Once you've told me you've got them, that's our starting point, and then we go and find what the problem is.
Okay, well that brings me on to this inner child work, if we understand based on what we've just discussed that our inner child is stuck and blocked and held on with these abandonment issues, our inner child is experiencing extreme red light emotions of fear, neediness, creating them because of the beliefs it's holding on to about childhood.
Yes.
Now we talk about, and I will put a link to our inner child reparenting videos to help you with this. To begin this process, we talk about stage 1 of working with the inner child on this sort of issue. And that is, as the adult us, as the parent to our inner child, we first have to understand, accept the life lesson for ourselves before we can teach it to the inner child.
Yes.
So what are the life lessons here, David, in this sort of abandonment issue situation?
Well, it's the ones that we've been talking about. Do we need, so again, it might be good to write it down and go through and analyze your sentence. Do we need other people? And what do we mean by need? Yes, we want to be with other people. We want to be around other people. But I would suggest to a child that has to be healthy. So before you can be around other people, you have to have as we said on the relationship video, before you can have a relationship with anyone else, you have to have a relationship with yourself. So what I would be thinking about learning the life lessons about the word need, what is it we need, and how do we find this flow in this society? And I would say it starts with you first.
And so would you say the life lesson in that situation is that you are enough already? You are not incomplete. You're not a jigsaw with a piece missing.
Exactly.
The life lesson is that you don't need anyone else to survive and thrive and reach your potential. That's your starting place, but you can then choose to be with other people, but you're already complete.
I think in the example that you just said, the first thing that come to mind if I was working with that client would be, I would want to teach emotional self-responsibility. What that means, do you accept it? Are you emotionally self-responsible? Or are you looking externally for someone to come in, the fairy godmother, and sort out your emotions? So I would say, if I was working with that type of a client, we would be talking about, do you accept that you create the emotions? Every emotion, joy, happiness, bliss, love, green light emotions, anger, frustration, resentment, fear, red light emotions. And then I would go on to, are you emotionally self-responsible? Are you taking full responsibility now? We know you didn't as a child, but are you doing it now? So what we're doing is we're getting the adult part of you fit for purpose, fit to do the education, because you are the teacher now, so you've got to learn the lesson for yourself. And with a client I said yesterday, that's where we are. We're going through and because what happens is when she gets down to the child, speaks to a child, when a child says something, she kind of agrees with it. And she can't give the child the lesson, you see.
Yeah. And what if someone comes to you with and identifies an inner child inauthentic belief that is something along the lines of, people who I love will leave me?
Okay, so I'd want to know the evidence for that.
Yeah.
So I'd be asking. So right away, we're talking to the inner child now. So I would want to be asking the inner child. And when you get to the inner child, it's very important. I like to call the child a pet name. Okay, little one. Okay, darling. Okay, dear. Okay, son. Whatever it is. And I'd say, okay, son, so why do you believe, okay, little one, why do you believe that everyone leaves you?
Because that's what's happened to me in the past. That's what's happened to me, say, with my parents, and that's what's happened to me in my adult relationships so far. It's almost like I equate loving someone with heartache because they leave me. And
so right away now, you see what she's doing? So I would then, we probably haven't got time to role play this on this video, and I would say, well, why do you believe that they leave you?
Oh.
So now we see we've done
So
three.
we're digging deeper
now
every
we've
time.
gone to the three lies.
Well,
now
then
I
it would,
can do that because I've got the life lesson.
Yeah, so what I was going to ask, so I guess the lie would be, if to role play that just one step further before we come right down to the life lesson. The child believes people leave them because they're not good enough.
Exactly. Or unlovable.
Or unlovable.
Exactly.
So there's the root lie.
Yeah.
That's then driving all the abandonment issues, all the abandonment dynamics in adult life. And so the life lesson is what?
Well, the life lesson is now I've got to try and understand why you believe that you're unlovable.
Okay.
And what does that mean? And who told you that? And where did that come from? And what is the evidence for that? Now I've got to, so I'm now trying to teach the inner child that is a misunderstanding of what's happened
to you. That you can't be unlovable, that you can't be rejected by someone, that you can't. So they're all the fundamental life lessons.
Now, we've jumped on a little bit. So if you go back to the beginning, say I'm the adult, I've got to know what the answers are to those questions.
Yeah, because, well, it's almost, we've described this stage one of getting to the root life lesson as the adult. Now we are emotionally mature, and now we're more rational in our thinking. Now we can process things more carefully. Now we can reflect on things with adult life experiences and hopefully a greater level of emotional intelligence. We have to do that self-inquiry work that you've just talked about as the adult, as the parent, to get to the root misunderstanding and then identify the life lesson, the sort of life lessons we've identified there and illustrated there, before we can then go and speak to the child.
Okay, so what I say to my clients, because I'm always trying to encourage my clients, you don't need me for this. It's much better if you do it. If I'm working with you, then what I would say to my child, if you're speaking to that part of your mind, as we just did the role play, and you don't know the answer, then you say, okay, I don't know the answer to that. Hold on, I'm speaking to David tomorrow or next week. We'll ask him. And then I can give you the teaching. And then you can disagree with me. You see, that's the whole point. We want to engage the child in a conversation. So if the child's saying, I'm unlovable, okay, so why do you believe you're unlovable? Well, my mother died. Again, this is what I heard yesterday. And you believe that she died because you were unlovable? Yes. Now we enter into that conversation, because although I've got an adult sitting in front of me, actually I'm speaking to their inner child. I'm speaking to a child that's 10 years old here. And when you do this for yourself, you have to know what is the life lesson, what is the answer to their questions. If you don't know the answer, then you say, okay, pause, I'll come back to you on this one. Don't tell them a lie. Say, that's a great question. And this is where a lot of my clients, they give up. They go, I can't be bothered. It's too hard. It's too difficult. And I think this is the most amazing part of the journey. This is where we talked a couple of videos ago about enlightenment, about the light clicking on and the penny dropping. This is when the penny drops, when you've got to understand that lesson. That's when the penny drops.
And for a lot of people, this stage 2 part, this when we've understood as the adult the life lesson, and now we're going to begin to talk to and communicate and listen to the child, this stage 2 communication. This is for a lot of people perhaps the first time in their life that they've actually started to allow the inner child's voice to be heard.
And you'll see,
allow the inner child's grievances to be heard. It wasn't fair. They shouldn't have left me. They don't love me. I'm not good enough. All that will come out.
And you'll see powerful explanations, and you'll hear teachings that the child is giving you. This is why I love working with my clients. You hear all the things, this shouldn't have happened, this not fair, it didn't happen to my friend, my parents love my brother more than me, or my sister more than me. And these are very powerful life lessons that you have to learn and pass on to that part of your mind that we're calling the inner child. That's the communication, as Alex said, the second stage, the education. And that may take you a few weeks to work through that stage for yourself. Because if you don't know the answer, when the child says, this isn't fair, and if you kind of say, I kind of agree with them, then you've got to say, okay, darling, I need to pause now because I need to go and get some information so we can now discuss this. It's like you saying, well, I'm going to go and check on Google now and find out what this fairness is. Because until you learn that life lesson, then you're on the carousel.
And I think that's the two biggest stumbling blocks we hear in terms of communicating with the inner child and bringing about a positive resolution to this sort of issue. So in this case, we're talking about abandonment issues. Is downfall number one is you actually agree as the adult with what the inner child's saying. Actually, you still believe it was unfair, that people did abandon you because you were unlovable. And that until you learn that lesson and accept that lesson as the adult, how can you possibly, because even if you say to the inner child in your kind of conversation, whether it's a kind of questioning and answering conversation in your mind, or you're writing out the conversation on paper as some people like to do, you might, even if you try to tell the child, well, actually it was fair, but deep down the adult part of you still believes it was unfair. The child will know that. The child will sense the pulling apart. So you truly have to believe 100% and align with the life lesson and accept what happened.
And I think that's the number one. The number two is confusion. The child loves to create confusion because she knows you will give up. If he goes round and round and round, or she goes round and round and round, you go, oh my God, this is too hard. I haven't got the time. It's too tiring. I haven't got the energy. This is what I hear all the time. I haven't got the energy for this, David. And I keep on saying, but you've got the energy to keep worrying. You've got the energy to go on the carousel of despair. This is what you need to learn. These are dynamic, important, absolutely phenomenal lessons that will change your life. And I believe this is probably the only real value that someone like me can have. Because come and challenge me. Come and challenge me. If you don't think it's fair, let's talk about what fairness is. I can tell you what fairness is to a child. Do you know what fairness is? It's not the way I want it to be. That's what fairness normally means in my experience. When the child says it's not fair, it's not the way I want it to be. That's what fairness means. That's why you have to be able to widen out the subject and work with the child.
And I think this brings us on to stage 3, which is emotionally educating the child. So in stage 2, the kind of listening and communication, allowing the child to be heard, giving the child the space to express everything they're feeling, digging down to the thoughts, digging down to the beliefs, and doing that in a non-judgmental, non-critical way. Don't jump in and say, oh, you're being ridiculous, oh, that's ridiculous. Allowing, if the child doesn't want to talk, accepting that and then coming back the next day, trying again to have that conversation. But stage 3 is really about emotionally educating the child with the life lessons. And
coming together. I always think stage 3, because what's happened with something like abandonment, it's created a separation. And what stage 3 is learning the lessons and coming together as one. And that's the teaching, coming together in balance, being in your flow, not fighting against each other, not playing tug of war, but coming together and believing, truly believing in every cell of your body that you are awesome. There is no one like you in the whole universe. What more do you want than that? You are made of cosmic stardust. What more do you want? And stage 3 is learning the lesson and understanding that life has got difficulties, twists, turns, ups, downs, whatever you want to call them. Life does not go the way that you believe it should go. That's reality. You can sit down and think, I wish as much as you want. but life doesn't go that way. And being in your flow is, like I said, you've got to be able to be like that musician, playing and moving and flowing and being, this just coming from this deep flow of who you are. And when you've got this doubt, this blocks this energy coming through you, and that's what we're trying to help you with. See, nobody can teach you and show you this, or rather, nobody can give you this. We can teach it, but I can't give it to you because you've already got it. See, nobody can take it away from you. Only you can cover it up. And that's why these teachings are so important.
And I think when you've done this work, David, as you say, it's like an unblocking. It breaks the pattern, it breaks the cycle, it breaks the carousel of despair, so that you're not constantly repeating patterns of being in dysfunctional relationships, of seeking out people who are going to save you. All of a sudden, you realize you can stand on your own 2 feet, and then that attracts completely different people and different energies into your life.
And that means then you can have healthy relationships because you're healthy.
Yeah.
And so you will then, by the law of attraction, attract healthy relationships, friends, situations, partners, careers. This begins to change because you won't suffer falls gladly.
Yeah.
You can pick them out at 10 paces because you're balanced and you're in harmony.
And your self-worth is unflappable.
Well, I mean, your self-worth, Alex, if you think about it, when people say to me, I've got low self-esteem, it's a good job. This is why I've got no hair, because oh my God, how can you? I'm looking at this fantastic person and they're telling me that they think they've got no worth. I mean, this is something we need to change together, because if we don't, this is like this emotion education, we can change the world. It is that important, I believe. When you start really believing in who you really are, you change, your family changes. It's like dropping a pebble and the ripples will move out. Your life will change. I will guarantee it. It's very rare you hear me say that. I will guarantee it, that when you believe the trueness about yourself, your life changes.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. And we only just touched upon the inner child work and inner child reparenting techniques there. But as I say, I will put a link in the description below to all our other videos on the inner child healing, inner child work. So there'll be more for you to learn from those videos.
And can I just say, I know that was a little bit confusing because we dealt with the pendulum, and the pendulum can be confusing. So if you've got any questions, write them below or join our community and we'll talk them through with you, because we can't be precise for you.
Yeah.
So kind of work through, and writing things down can clear the confusion.
And please share with us any takeaways, what's been the most powerful takeaway from this teaching, or if there's anything you can identify with in terms of patterns of behavior, please also share and comment below, because we'd absolutely love to hear from you. If you'd like to work with David one-to-one on any of the issues we talked about, he works every week by video call with clients all over the world, and I will put a link in the description below to learn more about his sessions. And as you probably know, we produce new videos every week on our YouTube channel, and we'd love for you to subscribe. So please subscribe and click the bell notifications button so you get a little email notification every time we publish a new video. And we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye-bye.